Welcome to the Connection Central Industry Podcast, where real conversations meet real strategies. Each episode we dive into the industries that keep Australia moving, talking with the leaders, innovators, and everyday operators, shaping what's next. So settle in, turn it up, and let's get into it.
Good morning, everybody. It's Michelle O'Hara here from Connection Central with another business industry podcast. We're lucky today because we've got Michael Mrowka from REA Global. Welcome, Mike.
Hi.
Good to have you. So, Michael, we're going to get stuck straight in. Tell us a bit about, well, first of all, what REA stands for in REA Global, and give us just a bit of a history about you guys, what you offer, just to get started.
Yeah, so REA stands for Renewable Engineering Australia. We started back in 2006 as an advisory company, so renewable energy advisors, and then moved into the design and manufacturing. So we have REA Global, which is essentially the global arm of the company. We're in the UK and Australia, and we are looking to head into the US as well in the next couple of years. So the Renewable Engineering Australia, what it stands for is the development of renewable energy technologies, from solar power to battery storage to electric vehicle charging, which is all designed to create energy independence for the user.
Fantastic. And obviously, at this time with the fuel costs and, well, in general, the cost to run business and run life, it's obviously a very pertinent time for you to be developing all these bits and pieces. Tell us a bit more about, so you've got the manufacturing arm and you've got the retail arm. Tell us a bit about, what you're doing in both of those spaces.
Yeah, so just to start with how we started the business, back in sort of 2008, 2010, when we wanted to develop new products, we identified that energy runs the world. We're here on the planet because of the sun, because of the energy that it produces to be able to create photosynthesis, which is how plants grow. So energy at the time was obviously, and still is, predominantly fossil fuels, which doesn't make sense. The nature operates in a renewable energy way through photosynthesis by using the sun, the wind, the ocean. And we believe that the future was renewable energy. And once it was commercialized and developed in a way where we could capture it in our own homes and do that at a lower cost than fossil fuels, then it would empower the pathway for us all to become independent in the energy that we produce and consume. So from there, in 2008, we brought on our own in-house installation and engineering team, and then started importing products from Germany. So at the time, the technology in the market was very expensive and quite primitive. So what we did was we looked into the world's leading markets, which at the time was Germany and Spain, and imported product from there to be able to provide a lower cost, better quality solution. And then from there, it's development over the last 15 years, creating better solar panels to produce more energy out of a smaller space, and then integrating newer technologies like our battery storage, electric vehicle charging. And then what we're focusing heavily on now is the energy management. So over the last 10 years, we've been developing the hardware to be able to generate the energy. And now it's about the management of that energy, when we store it, when we discharge it or distribute it both into the home and out to the grid, and how we manage that through wholesale energy markets.
Wow, lots going on there. Fantastic. So explain to the audience a bit more. Obviously, yes, there is the cheaper guys out there who have got, the crappy products, let's say. And you mentioned Germany and Spain, which is obviously the high quality products. Just explain, I guess, to the audience a little bit, because not everybody knows what's good, what's bad, right? So just talk a little bit about that side of things for us. Yeah.
So it's funny, in solar and renewable energy in general, when we talk quality, it's not necessarily the build quality, like when you buy a car or a couch or a TV. It's about the energy it generates under real world conditions. So you can have a panel that it might be built well in a factory in China or anywhere else in the world, but how that panel is developed determines how much energy it produces. So generally, the rule of thumb in renewable energy is the higher quality products is more about they generate more energy, and it's proportional. So we years ago, more than 10 years ago, where we saw our competitors would have a good, better, best offering, where they have, the cheaper Chinese products, and then you have the German products as the best quality as such, and there would be various variation in pricing. But what we found, particularly in the technology, is that it was proportional. So if you bought something for $5,000 and you bought something for $10,000, generally over the lifetime of the product's warranted period, you would get $10,000 worth of energy as opposed to $5,000. So it's really about that whole saying is that, a poor man pays twice. And it reigns true. It's more important in renewable energy than anything, because the energy is what we need, and that ultimately determines how much the system costs and what the return on investment is. So quality is one thing, but the other thing, when we talk quality, it also means technology. So there's technology in the market, and for example, what's currently out now with the cheaper homes battery rebate that's been released by the federal government over the last 12 months. There's been a massive influx of different battery technologies and brands into the market. And again, they vary massively in pricing, and generally the pricing is related to the warranted output, or the amount of cycles that the battery can deliver, and the quality of that hardware. So, for example, our REA power bank and a Tesla Powerwall and a Franklin battery in America, they all have semiconductors and no electrolytic capacitors. So a cheaper battery that might be half the price will essentially deliver half the energy over the lifetime, and also have higher reliability issues due to the lower quality components, but also the older technology that's in the battery itself.
Well, you're very knowledgeable in all this stuff. What's your background, Michael? How did you even land in this space?
Yeah, so many years ago, out of school, I was studying and studying business, and I was really focused on business and marketing. And engineering, and couldn't really figure out what to do. So I ended up going down the business route in the MBA space, and I knew I needed to be a business owner. I always had an issue being an employee, always butting heads with the business owners, because they were always set in their ways, happy with just keeping stable. And I wanted to develop and advance. And I worked with a company in Germany called SGS, who were doing testing and auditing of solar factories in China. So I moved to Kowloon in Hong Kong. I was traveling back and forth to Shenzhen and to Guangzhou, and this was early 2000s. This was well before the boom. So we would go into a factory and we would audit the factory for a client in Germany or Czech Republic, and we would make sure that the solar panels were being manufactured correctly, and they were using A-grade cells and A-grade products. So I had a really, really good, unique early adoption experience in the manufacturing space. And then from there, started to, identify that I wanted to set up my own business in Australia, and then brought on, super smart people, both in engineers and electricians, to be able to build out my team.
Fantastic. What a great story. I find it's interesting you say that, Michael, because I find everybody that I've interviewed on these podcasts, I think we're all exactly the same. We realized we were unemployable from quite a young age,
Yeah.
but obviously want to go on to make a big difference in your space, which is fantastic. So tell me a little bit, what are some of the challenges that you're finding from a business point of view? Obviously, it's hard to get staff. It's hard, what
Yeah.
sort of challenges are you finding out there?
Yeah, like everyone, recruitment is massive for us. We're in a booming industry, and because we're a vertically integrated business where we do everything from the design and R&D in partnerships with our university research projects. So we have University of Queensland and Central Queensland University up in Gladstone that we work with on developing and engineering the product through to the manufacturing, and then the actual design and installation and maintenance of the product. So the biggest bottleneck for us is the deployment. It's the installation. So it's electricians, it's apprentices, it's trade assistants in And also on the other side, it's salespeople, and we call them energy advisors, to be able to learn the product and technology, to be able to give people the right advice to help them on the pathway to energy independence. So recruitment is massive for us. And then the other thing as well is at the moment is being able to be really strategic in developing the new technology, but also being able to secure raw materials and manufacturing space.
Yes. So tell us a bit more about, obviously the whole EV space is growing extremely
Mhm.
fast. Talk a bit more about the R&D side of things and the technology and
Yeah.
stuff, because that's all very interesting. What's the future sort of looking like? Are we going to turn into the Jetsons, or what's happening? Yeah.
Well, I firmly believe again in energy independence, where we have a centralized grid system which can comprise of a combination of legacy fossil fuels, even nuclear in the future, with to be able to power AI data centers and massive power draw requirements. But ultimately, on a residential and small commercial point of view, a decentralized microgrid where we're all sharing power peer to peer, where essentially we have enough energy to power our home and our business and our transport. And we have the technology to be able to do that now. And then it's about being able to load share and control the energy production on the roof, and the energy that's stored in the battery, both in the home and in the car, to work together. So, for example, we are working on, well, we've now launched our new product, which is our REA Power Bank battery, that not only stores energy from the solar panels, but it will play the wholesale energy market. So in the day, energy is really, really cheap. When there's lots of solar being poured into the grid, you can actually buy energy for next to nothing, and sometimes even get paid to pull power from the grid in the middle of the day, because there's nowhere else for it to go. So our battery can store that energy, but what else it can do is it can talk to your car through vehicle to grid. So it can actually charge your car, but also you'll be able to use your car as a generator to charge your home battery. So for instance, if you can think of a scenario where we have a cyclone, we have no solar being generated, your battery's nearly flat, but your car is full. You can actually then send power from your car to fill your home battery really quick, and then slowly discharge from that battery. Now, as your car starts to obviously run out in power, you can then drive your car to another place where you can charge it, or a public station, and bring the fuel back to charge your battery again. So it's about that, and you can do that with your business as well. So it's about that energy independence, but that decentralized grid system. And it's all about the design and the control of being able to manage that correctly.
My goodness, blowing my mind here. Do you think that there's enough education out there for, I guess, residential and commercial people to really understand how to use all this properly and in their
Definitely
best
not. No,
interests?
because it's been, ultimately, we've worked really hard over the last 10 years in developing this technology, and we are very experienced, particularly in battery storage integration. But it's only been over the last year that we've had government assistance to be able to make it more affordable, where it's not just the early adopters. Everyone can now
Mhm.
afford it. It's now cheaper to have a battery and solar system, and even pay that off on an interest-free plan, than it is to just pay your power bill. And then you're paying off an asset that you own, that eventually, once paid off, you've got free power for the next 20 years, as opposed to just keep throwing the money down the drain, renting power forever from the grid. But the education piece, it's traditionally been around, okay, we're going to save power and save money on installing solar panels, but adding the battery storage and then the wholesale energy market trading to it is another layer that needs to be understood, because a lot of batteries have been installed under the new scheme, and they're sitting there empty, or they're sitting there full. And it's because they might not have enough solar power to charge the battery and power the house in the day. So that's when you need a smart battery to be able to say, well, okay, I'm on a wholesale energy plan now. I'm not with a retailer. Currently, the energy cost from the grid is 5 cents. At night, it's going to be 40 cents. I'm going to use the solar power to power the house, but I'm going to pull from the grid the additional power I need to fill my battery in my home. and fill my battery in my car because I know that I'm going to buy it for 5 cents in the day and I'm going to export it when it's 50 cents. So I'm going to have a net profit of 45 cents. You need a smart battery to do that. But unfortunately, a lot of the batteries being sold in the market, it's all about lowest cost up front as opposed to return on investment and a faster return for my money, which ultimately means a lower cost battery.
Right. Tremendous education for everybody listening today. Thank you for that. I think so. Goodness, you're so clever.
Just
The
experience,
battery.
experience.
No, it's really interesting though because I don't think people really understand. Like it makes sense everything you're saying. So all the
Yeah,
infrastructure is actually all there. It's
that's
just
right.
a matter of understanding. You sound like a stockbroker the way that you're moving.
Well, it's going to be
Um,
energy trading, and that's the future. The future
yeah.
is commodity trading. But imagine being able to day trade a commodity, but knowing exactly when the pricing is low and when the pricing is
Yeah.
high. It's been the same. We have the same energy usage patterns. We have plenty of solar being generated in the day, and the energy
Hmm.
requirement, particularly with residential, is very low. Everybody's out, they're at work. Everybody comes home at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Power demand jumps through the roof at 6 o'clock. There's no solar being produced because the sun goes down. So they're turning on the coal-fired power plants. They're injecting that energy that's very expensive into the network. So if you can play the energy in the day and then get off the network at night and utilize your own energy, but then also have a surplus. So you have a bigger battery than you need. So then you can play that energy market as well and actually generate an income.
My goodness. So tell just a little bit more education around the different types of batteries then.
Yeah.
You mentioned so that, it can store it and you can a little bit more on that because that's
Yes. So
fascinating.
you've got a smart battery and then you've got a dumb battery. And a dumb battery essentially just identifies, okay, I've got solar being produced that the home isn't using. I can put it into the battery. When the sun goes down, the battery's full, the house needs energy, it will first pull from that battery until the battery is flat. The issue with that is that you're losing a lot of potential where you can put a bigger battery in, you can then pull from the grid when the power is low, the cost is low, and then you can discharge either into the house or out to the grid when the energy cost is really high. And that's the main difference between a dumb battery and a smart battery. And then we get into the technology of the actual manufacturing of the battery itself. So you've got high voltage batteries, which is the easiest way to develop a battery. So essentially, each battery cell is roughly 3 to 4 volts. They connect them up in series, and eventually they get to around 400 volts direct current. But the problem is with direct current, it can't be circuit protected. So what that means is when they convert it from high voltage DC to 240 volt usable alternating current that's circuit protected, that when it's in its high voltage state, there's a potential for a DC arc fault. So we believe that the only way to be able to guarantee a safe battery for your home is to have low voltage. So the other way of developing a battery is to have the battery packs in parallel, and rather than using electrolytic capacitors, to use semiconductors or what's called a dual active bridge technology, where we're able to go from low voltage DC in a single stage straight up to 240 volt AC without losing efficiency. And you do that through advanced power electronics. So again, semiconductors, an aerospace level of power electronics. It costs more upfront to do that. However, you deliver proportionally more energy and more cycles. So it doesn't cost any more to do that. But unfortunately, the industry is all driven around low cost upfront. So
Yeah.
instead of a battery that costs $10,000, can I deliver a battery to the market at $5,000, even though it delivers half the energy? Who cares? It's a
Right.
cheaper upfront
Yes.
cost. But it's not the way to do it, because what you do is you end up risking safety, and you compromise on safety, performance, and reliability. So the two main batteries in the market, you've got high voltage batteries and then you've got low voltage batteries. And we firmly believe that we need to maintain AC architecture, which means that we have complete circuit protection. If there is a fault in the system, it's low voltage. We're not going to be able to have a potential DC arc fault or a potential for fire, and it's fully circuit protected. And that's the main difference between our technology and most of the other.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You're so passionate about this, I can tell. You couldn't have explained it better, Michael. Thank you so much today. This has been absolutely a fantastic education, but also the passion you have for this space is just amazing. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure many people will be getting in touch to, find the best solutions for them. Thanks for being on.